completed our executive session, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, Chairman. There are two adjustments. One in C, recognition, information, and proposals. Number one will change to recognition of Platte River School graduate. 2, 3, and 4 would then be the original items on the agenda for Group C. Then in addendum for E, for recommended actions under new business, we would add C1, board discussion regarding GCSD 2021-2022 school level close contact protocol document, recommendation, board discussion, and possible action.
You hearing those adjustments, is there a motion to adopt the agenda with the addendum?
I'll move to add the addendum to the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Are your mics on?
Yes. Can you hear it?
No.
It is on. I will speak louder. Okay, thank you. The motion, the agenda has been adopted. Information moving to letter C then, information and proposals. First up is the recognition of Platte River School graduate.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, members of the board. As was discussed, we're working to open Platte River School. Graduates would come in many forms. Alternative high schools provide an avenue for students struggling on their path toward graduation. Tonight, we're able to celebrate a graduate from Platte River School, a mark of success for this young man, as well as the alternative school concept in Goshen County School District Number 1. Mr. Kramer and members of the Goshen County School District Number 1 Board of Trustees, the administration and staff of Platte River School are proud to present Mr. Garrett M. Schmidt to receive his diploma. Garrett came to Platte River School from Colorado Early Colleges earlier this semester. He worked quickly to complete the 3 courses that were keeping him from graduation. Garrett is the 6th graduate from our alternative high school. A review of Garrett's academic record indicates that he has met the requirements of both his individual learning plan as well as the identified requirement for graduation as set forth by the Wyoming Department of Education and Goshen County School District Number 1.
Sure. Appreciate it.
Thank you and congratulations. Next on our agenda this evening will be a is scheduled to be reports from the student representatives to the board. I will state that I failed to assign them a topic, so I do apologize for that with the change in leadership of the board. We'll get back on track for that, for the ongoing ones, so thank you. Ms. Flanagan, would you mind opening the door? Thank you. It's loud? Okay. All right, I just, thank you. We'll open it when it's less loud. All right, the next agenda item then is a school presentation and artwork by LaGrange Elementary.
Good evening, I'm Tim Williams, principal down in LaGrange. I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to come and speak with you tonight. I've brought Katrina Gifford with me and Matt Daly. They're two of the teachers down there, and they will have a quick presentation for you.
So as we're getting linked up, one of the things that the school district is really focusing on is phonics and phonemic awareness in the elementary grades. And so we are going to be talking about Orton Gillingham and what it's doing in our school. So we have had extensive training from the IMSC Multisensory Education Administration, and we have had the opportunity to have one of the representatives come to our school and give us personal coaching in our classrooms. And we'd like to share with you some of the fruits of what that has brought about. So I teach kindergarten and first grade, a combined classroom. And so there are some of the samples that I have to show you about what that looks like at the beginning. So this is generally how a lot of kindergartners start. We talk about capitals at the beginning, finger spaces, and punctuation at the end. A lot of kids come in not being able to write yet, and so we start with highlighting and go from there. Later on in the year, you'll see that they can start doing writing on their own with complete sentences. Normally in kindergarten, you don't see this until the end. The standard is that they need to be able to read and write one sentence of their own by the end of the year, and they're doing this at the end of first quarter. So they're writing words and sentences, generating them on their own in 9 weeks. And so they don't even know all the letters yet, but the ones they do know, they can use. And here's some examples from first grade. This is one of the students that I've had for 2 years of Orton Gillingham. And not only does the detail extend from their handwriting work and what they can generate, it also extends into their pictures. You can see some of the artwork around here. The ones behind the board members are kindergarten and first grade examples. And I've been teaching for 19 years now, and I've never had kids that were able to produce such detail in their work. It's pretty amazing what they're able to do. We have some coaching videos that we use with them and tell them that it's a lot like learning phonics. If you know the small steps, then you can create small details and create an amazing picture. And so the next example is another one from one of my students. And they're using sight words correctly, which they usually don't in first grade because they can't remember them. A lot of the techniques we use through Orton Gillingham help solidify that in their memory. And it's just some amazing work. So this is an example of what some of the instruction looks like. We talk about breaking out the sounds in words and then blending it together at the end. Then we can put it into a sentence that they are provided the spaces for, and then they rewrite it. And on the bottom, you can see some syllabication examples that we use for multi-syllabic words. We talk about open and closed syllables, how they pronounce the vowels in those words. And on the next slide, you can see how they use that in their reading. So in some of the texts in kindergarten and first grade, they're going through and marking up words that they don't know to figure out how to sound them out. Now at this level, this is paper, pencil, using the tools, but by the time they get into second and third grade, which I do some guided reading groups with that teacher, those kids are doing it automatically and saying, I know how to do this multi-syllabic word because the first syllable is closed, the second syllable is open, and now I know the word. And so it's making them become better readers and giving them a toolkit that will make them so much more proficient as readers, writers, and learners.
So I'm Mrs. Gifford. I have the 5th and 6th graders. I have taught the 6th graders since they were 5th grade at Wharton Gillingham. We know COVID kind of hit and we had just been trained in, I finished mine in February and then so I tried to implement it through Zoom and it was very hard because it's very hands-on. And so my 6th graders they have had a full year. And so I noticed that this year we didn't have to start nearly as early. And the 5th graders last year had it in 4th grade. And so we have kind of jumped into morphology, like Greek and Latin and still some of those harder spelling concepts. I had a student come to me who had not had any Wharton Gillingham. This is the first week of school. It is not a student who just rushes through everything, but you can see there's no capitals. There's a few periods, not very easy to read. After a little bit of Wharton Gillingham, and then he's getting extra time just to catch up to where the other students are. We can now see even his handwriting has changed. This was a spelling test a few weeks after the last slide. And then this is also some of their practice during the week. We have also implemented this. They come up with their own sentences, so they're very specific to their lives. And then each week we do red words. Those are the words that they have to stop and really learn. And so the student will take a red word and we practice how to spell it and memorize it. And they have little jingles and different ways to memorize it. But then they also have to turn it into their morphology part of where did that word originate from. So this is just an example of one student's card. Right now we have 26 words and every card looks this way. Some of them have put in there what their spelling was, some have not. And so overall, we are very excited with it. We see huge growth with our students. And
we'd like to thank you for
Yes.
giving us the opportunity to have phonics instruction for initial reading instruction. It's amazing, and hopefully we're closing those gaps for kids to where they can be successful learners their lifelong. So thank you.
And I would piggyback on what Mr. Daly is saying. It's not just training, it is consistent training by the same person, and it is more than just one time. So many of the things that we've been trained on that have been brought to the district, they show up once and we might have a follow-up here and there. And it'll stay for a while and then it'll just fade into the woodwork. This has been consistent, it's an expectation. Mr. Kramer shared with everybody, and it's trickled right on down through principals. We're doing this every day without question. If you need more training, we'll get you more training. And so we appreciate the fact that you're putting Candy Schneider and her group in our district along, because it makes a huge difference. Questions? All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 then is discussion of Wyoming School Board Association proposed resolutions for the 2021 delegate assembly. President Saucedo is our representative to this, and so if you have any insight or information that you'd like to share with the board?
No, unless, there's any discussion. I think that they're pretty, each of the WSBA actually identifies or gives their recommendation as to affirming or denying. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as, if there's any questions or if there's any discussion that needs to be had on any of the resolutions, so that when I do attend on the 17th, that I am representing us as a board. I think I will have to say I am very pleased with the resolution on suicide prevention training being added into the curriculum. I think that is one that has been something that has been being worked on quite a bit. So I'm glad to kind of see that being considered. However, I just, again, if there's anything that anybody has any discussion on or anything that they want to add, so that I can take it to the WSBA meeting.
Is there any additional discussion? Those resolutions.
So I guess I'm just going to go through them specifically and ask if everybody is okay with that to make sure that we do. So on the curriculum of primary grades, the recommendation, I'm not going to go through every one of them specifically, but the curriculum for primary grades, the recommendation for the WSBA Board of Directors is to affirm that. Is everybody, yes.
May I just add a little bit to the reason and thought process behind that resolution? Currently, the legislature is having discussion relating to early childhood reading. They would then possibly, the possibility exists that the state would then set curriculum and assessment requirements, which we feel right now as perfect timing for LaGrange to present on Orton Gillingham. We feel we have an excellent program that is getting very high quality results right now. We feel very strongly as administrators that that actually supports what we're doing right now. And for the state to tell us or reinforce or say, no, your program is not good enough, even though you are getting the results that you are desiring, you need to change and go in this direction. So this is something that I feel absolutely should be a local school board decision. And with the information that we are seeing, along with just the presentation that worked out perfectly, I think absolutely we should support at the Wyoming School Board Association.
Any comments or discussion on that?
I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone is with the affirmation on that. The next one is health standards. Again, considering suicide prevention being part of the curriculum. Is there anything that you'd like to be able to bring up on that one?
You said it perfectly in what
Okay.
we addressed it. I completely and 100% agree. I think we are doing because of the support that we have from right now currently in our district, we are further along than other districts in the state. I feel that it absolutely is imperative that across the state, that all districts should see that same benefit that some of our students are doing, and also bring it to the forefront so we can continue to work hard to do more.
So again, that recommendation from the WSBA is to actually affirm that resolution. Is there? Okay. The next is recruitment and retention of extracurricular and co-curricular staff, coaches.
This one, I do not have a strong recommendation in either direction. I think there are school districts in the state that find themselves in a very precarious position in regards to the requirements for coaching certification. We fortunately are not one of those districts. We have some great supports and support systems through the Wyoming Coaches Association that we have been able to garner and get our coaches certified. It is, of course, getting more and more difficult to find available coaches, but we are not in dire situations as some other districts in the state. Even if this were to progress through, I would not recommend the district follow this with our current situation.
Okay. And that also is being recommended for affirmation. Okay.
Is your microphone on? Just there we go. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is the social studies curriculum and materials transparency resolution. Here they also recommend it be affirmed. And would you like to speak
I would just agree with that statement that those same things are affirmations in regards to providing transparency and accountability to selection of the use of curriculum materials and activities to promote and teach these concepts.
Okay. And that one too is also for affirmation. And the last is critical race theory in Wyoming schools. The recommendation here from the WSBA is to deny this resolution.
I don't have a recommendation in either direction for this resolution.
Any discussion, any comments?
So that the WSBA Board of Directors is saying deny. Teaching. Yeah, teaching critical race theory in Wyoming schools, or what are they, what's their position on this essentially?
Go ahead.
So from my understanding of this, what's that?
No, go ahead, you're fine. I was just-
Sorry, that this resolution would prevent the Wyoming us to teach critical race theory in the classroom. However, their denial, the reason for denial is that they don't feel like the state should be able to tell us what we should or should not teach in any given district within the state.
So therefore, it should be a district matter instead of a state.
Correct. Trying to keep local control is the way I understand this.
Okay, so if it's my understanding, I'll just go with the recommendations of the WSBA.
Any other discussion following the meeting? Feel free to reach out to trustee Saucedo. And that meeting is
The 17th.
17th. Okay, thank you. Very good. Thank you. Next on our agenda then is item D, public forum. If any individuals wish to speak in public forum, please complete a yellow sheet and give it to receive all necessary. I can take that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There'll be one more. All right, we'll take that when it is completed. All right, so to start us this evening, welcome Ms. Rebecca Cohorn to address us.
Thank you, sir, for my time.
Later in the public forum?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, thank you. While you're up, would you like to address us? Sure. Perfect, thank you. Ms. Liz Ryle, yes.
Just gonna be quick. I just want the board to really think about the decisions that you're making. What? Liz Ryle, sorry. Concerning the policies that we're gonna maybe change or enact or whatever with the contact tracing. This is we're a big, small community, but there's lots of different aspects that go into that. And I'm just concerned that we're gonna be asking people to do things that are against their conscience. I understand COVID is crazy. We all are trying to figure this out. None of us know what to do. None of you guys know what to do. We don't know what to do. We're all learning as we go. We need to stay together and we need to try to remember that there's gonna be people that could possibly be asked to do something that they actually feel is wrong. And it could cost them jobs. And there's also the aspect that I think we need to look into. We just got rid of the mask, we're still contact tracing, we have all that mess. There's schools throughout this area, very close to us, that their contact tracing is, hey guys, parents, your kid was in close contact, watch for symptoms, keep him home if he runs a fever, keep him home if he has symptoms, but that's it. And they're not having any more outbreak than we're having. It's what it is. It's gonna be here. It's gonna be here to stay. My kid was one of the kids that was in the hospital with COVID. You know, who knows who it's gonna hit hard? Who knows? Well, I think last school board meeting, somebody said there was like 700 people, 700 kids in the hospital right now with COVID. That sucks. but that's like 0.00000 something. Most kids are gonna be just fine with it. If we as a community can be committed to keep our kids home, if we think they have it, I don't see why we have to make a kid or a parent decide what they're gonna stand for in a school. And that's all.
Thank you. I forgot to do that. Mr. Bob Peterson.
My name is Bob Peterson. Thank you, members of the school board, for having this opportunity to speak. I only have a couple of questions. The school website really needs to be updated. I had one parent get a hold of me and said there was no history classes in Torrington High School. When you get on the website, you have 55 staff at the website, and none of them say that I'm a history teacher. I called Mr. Fuller and he was very good about checking it out. There are 2 history teachers, but he was telling me the website is out of date. And it's the same out of date website that will not allow you to get on there and look at the curriculum for the grade schools. So maybe some members of the school board, if they could, talk to your IT guy and see if you get it up so it'll be a little easier to use and it'd be up to date on what's on the website. The other thing was a concern of mine is the approval of posting a new position for a district technology job coach. And I imagine it's for the virtual learning. But my questions are, we have a superintendent of schools. We have a principal of schools. We have assistant principals all the way through the schools. And I don't know whether this is a full-time position or not. I'll wait until you vote on it and discuss it more because I don't know what it is. But the part that bothered me, at least on the computer, when you look there, he answers directly to the curriculum director. And, you know, delegation is a wonderful thing. I'm just curious of what the job responsibilities are for superintendents, principals, and associate, principals. And if you could answer that sometime during the meeting, I'd really appreciate it. And then the only other thing that bothers me is on the votes. You cannot hear people voting one way or another. Yays and nays is a terrible way of doing it. And I believe if you look at the Roberts Rules of Meetings, you're to do roll call votes instead of voice votes. Because out here, you cannot hear who's voting yay or nay or whatever. But thank you for your time. Keep up the good work.
Mr. Tacarell.
Thank you, members of the board, Mr. Kramer, for allowing us the opportunity to speak. I guess I just got a couple of questions. The biggest one is, when does common sense come back into this? When we first started this thing, there was no citywide mandate, there was no county mandate, and yet we voted, and it was decided before the meeting even happened that we were going to mask the kids. The public could have stood there until we were blue in the face. The decision was already made to put the mask on. No different than at the last meeting, the decision was made to take the mask off before the meeting even started. Mr. Miller made the most common sense point out of all of it when he said there is no point to have a mask mandate in school from 8 to 3:30 when there's not one at the city and there's not one at the county. Why is not the rest of this decided with common sense also? It's no different now. So I guess my biggest question is, and if somebody could answer that, why did we have to have masks so important then? And a short time later, we don't have to have masks. Was it money? What is it? Were we going to get money from the state, from the government, from whoever to put our masks on kids? And that fell through. So now we don't worry about the mask, and now we're moving on to the quarantine because it appears we're going to get $483,000 for virtual online learning. So do we need to keep enough kids in quarantine to keep them online learning instead of in the classroom in order to get that funding? What is it? Is it money? What are we doing? This makes no sense. If we need money, then we need to have a different discussion. When does common sense come back into this? Then we start putting kids into quarantine. I go to the football game on Friday night and I watch a school official follow a 16, 17-year-old girl around, harassing her because she was supposed to wear a mask because she was supposed to be in close quarantine. Same goes for her father, who I stood by at the game. How does that, where does that come into play? The mask, according to what I see, it has nothing to do with after-school activities or football games, which are, last time I checked, is outdoors. This is a joke. You guys have got to get control of this. You were elected by the people of this county. The same constituents that elected you can unelect you. Some of you guys are up for re-election in 1 year. And if you don't get this right and start voting the way the will of the people do, you might as well not waste your money on campaign posters. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rod Wagner.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, Board, Superintendent, audience. My name is Rod Wagner. I live at 3715 Road 86, Lingle, Wyoming. My phone number is 307-837-2786. I tell you this because there are many school boards that want to know all that information about the people that speak, the parents that come that are concerned. And the reason I'm coming to you tonight is that I'm a dangerous guy. I'm a white male who is straight, who is a Christian, who loves his family, who loves the Bible, who loves his pickups and his guns. And what I want you to do is to draft a letter to the State School Board Association. Carlos, you're going to be there evidently, stating that until the National School Board Association petitions Merrick Garland and the White House to rescind this stupid stuff about calling people domestic terrorists who are concerned about their children, that you will not be a part of it, that you'll not pay your dues, and you will secede from their organization. That's what I'd like to have you do. Thank you.
Ms. Aubrey Matthews.
Hi, good evening. My name is Aubrey Matthews. I have a freshman and a junior at Torrington High School. On Tuesday, yesterday, it was brought to my attention that we have kind of an issue going on at their high school, something about a girl was supposed to be in some type of quarantine. She was followed around at a football game. She was harassed. Anyways, whatever happened, I think that basically we need to get back to the basics here. I looked on your website and your motto is caring people who lead, empower, and inspire all students to achieve excellence. You state as your #1 goal to build a positive culture, improve communications with the students, staff, families, and communities, and to ensure a safe and healthy environment. That is laughable. All the students at Torrington High School can talk about or think about is this ridiculous event that the police were actually going to arrest the student if she showed up over what? She was exposed to someone who maybe had COVID. That you guys have absolutely no direction for people. You have some people who don't care at all. You have other people who are taking this to such an extreme, it's ridiculous. And so you need to get it together, whatever your policy is going to be, so that our students can focus on things that matter, like their education, like applying to colleges, like thinking about their future, what they want to do, and not this drama. I expect to see this drama from the high school students. It is ridiculous when the drama is coming from the staff. You guys need to get that under control ASAP, or people are gonna start pulling their kids out of school. And my understanding is that funding is based on attendance. Don't mess with me and my kids. Thank you.
Ms. Coburn. Thank you. Thanks for all those who have spoken during public forum. The next item on our agenda then is letter E under recommended actions, the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item E, or at least ask a question about it.
So pull item E, okay. Any additional items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item E?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you vote. I don't know who voted anyway.
Sir, will we have the opportunity to call our votes in the way that we see fit? It was unanimous. And so we'll proceed forward. Thank you. Item E. Yeah. Is there a motion to approve item E to accept a grant from the Wyoming Department of Health in the total amount of $55,650 for the purpose of employing a district COVID-19 tracer for 2021-2022? Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I guess, did we already okay it that we were gonna hire somebody for this spot? Is that, I don't remember, did we say we were gonna hire somebody to do this already?
Yeah, so this is that part where we talked about the piece to support the nurses in relation to when we entered into the entering into this protocol and the extra additional support that our nurses needed. Mr. Hager and I talked about this agenda item, and I appreciate you actually pulling it so I can elaborate a little bit. These would be district employees. We do receive a grant for the funding for the remainder of the school year for their salary and benefits. But these are individuals from our community that we hire and actually to support our nurses. Currently, our nurses are doing the contact tracing. They would continue to do that, but these individuals would then support by calling parents. They would also support by keeping the paperwork. Our nurses are highly trained individuals, and some of the tasks that they're also assigned to now with contact tracing, in addition to the conversations, it is much easier to have somebody who has that knowledge, but also can perform the duties from central office or go to any school that might be in need of assistance. Currently, with our current protocol, if you look at the dashboard right now, we have about 20, more than 20 students in Torrington High School, roughly about 16 in Lingo Fort Laramie. So when these individuals would start, we have to remember that each one of those students is screened in the morning, and that is time consuming also for our nurses. So these individuals would start off in the schools in the morning, assisting with the screening protocols that are in place in the morning. Then as we kind of progress through the day, we typically have calls from parents indicating positive tests. So then they would get a call from the nurses at each of those individual schools and then assist with contacting parents who might be of close contact to those positives. And then also with the piece that we are keeping very close records of each and every positive case we have in regards to informing our public, then the paperwork side of that would also be supported by those individuals. This does not have anything to do with having number of positive cases, or it is not tied to any of that. It is also not tied directly to any specific federal funds that we have to make requirements on to make certain rules or regulations around our school district. The Wyoming Department of Health offered this grant to support schools as they were unable to provide enough staff members at the county health level and at the state to provide as much support that is needed by schools at this time.
So with this is tracers plural. This is not just a single position.
This is two positions, as we kind of discussed when we were talking about implementing the quarantine protocol.
And if things were slow as far as COVID cases and all of that, they would.
There right now, our nurses are in dire need of assistance for many other situations within their schools. There would definitely not be a lack of services that these individuals could provide to our nurses in regards to the health and safety of our students in our schools.
And what was our criteria for selecting?
So what we asked within the posting was individuals who might have some experience within the medical field, also experience with phone contacts, also experience with possibly just data record keeping, Excel, Word documents, those type of things to find out which might be proficient. Those solely might not be necessarily in isolation. Absolutely, if somebody has a great deal of experience in making phone contacts and is very proficient at that, but doesn't necessarily have medical experience, that wouldn't eliminate their position, because that is absolutely a strength that we desire. A medical person or a person in the medical field who has a great deal of understanding in regards to screening students for temperature, asking questions, helping and supporting our nurse, but doesn't have experience in data entry or phone calls, again, would not be eliminated from that position, because that is a very valuable quality that we could definitely use in this situation.
I'd like to say one thing that might clarify it a little bit. I think from here on out, anytime we ever add anything COVID related, I think it's just imperative that we go that extra mile, extra step to be 100%, make sure we are open and honest, like in this, exactly what this person's job description is going to be. You know, maybe we could post it on the website. We could do something to help parents and students know, you know, what this is going to entail, just to help the communication between the district and the students in the community.
I mean, I would agree with that. My recollection from the last meeting was I was the one that asked the question as to who was going to specifically be monitoring those contacts. And I thought that Mr. Kramer did a very good job of explaining that there were funds to be able to actually hire people to do that. So I guess I thought he made it very clear that this was something we were going to actually pursue.
In an answer also, that job description is posted on our website along with any openings that we have relating to that. This item actually is the accepting of the grant, not necessarily the position allocation, as we have already posted that from the previous meeting. And so if anybody, yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. If there is a way to make that more open and bold, and I appreciate trustees' willingness to ask those questions, because that is important. It absolutely is imperative that we provide that information and answer those questions, especially in this forum.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion that has been made is to accept the grant from Wyoming Department of Health in the total amount of $55,650 for the purpose of employing district COVID-19 contract tracers for the 2021-2022 school year. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
We'll do a roll call. Trustee Sussex.
I oppose.
Trustee Patrick.
I support.
Schmick,
Yes.
Bullington,
Yes.
Saucedo,
Yes.
Hager,
Opposed.
Cushman,
Opposed.
Chairs.
Yes.
And I support. Motion passes on a 6-3. Moving next to new business, consider action resulting from executive session for student disciplinary hearing. Is there a motion?
Chairman Miller, I would move to expel student 2021-22-01 for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Thank you. So motion carries 8 in favor with 1 abstention. New business, letter B, acknowledge the receipt of petitions received by Goshen County School District Board of Trustees. So the recommended action is to acknowledge the receipt of the petition received by the board at the October 12th board meeting. No further action will need to be taken on this agenda item, other than just acknowledging that it's been received, correct?
And the item has been addressed in previous board meetings within the last 12 months.
Thank you. So do we need a motion on this? Item C then is to consider approval of proposed 2022-2023 school year calendar as presented. It's on page 61 of your agenda.
I move to approve the proposed 2022-2023 school calendar as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item is to consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of a new football scoreboard for the legal Fort Laramie School. Sorry, excuse me. On our addendum was item C1 for discussion related regarding Goshen County School District 2021-2022 school level post-contract protocol. This was requested by a board member today, and so the recommendation is for discussion and any potential action. So to begin, is there any discussion on this protocol?
I think in light of recent events, it's important to clarify some of the verbiage as long as we are forced to have this quarantine protocol in place. I think that it's important to clarify so that it is unified across the district through administration for our students, our parents, and our administrators. One of the biggest questions that has come up is nowhere in this protocol does it state specifically that students should mask at after-school events. When attending them, it says in after-school activities, but it does not say as attendees.
And that was option 1, and that's bullet point, sorry.
Bullet point 3.
Right, is there any further discussion on that or any of the other bullet points within the document?
So I guess my question is there a motion on the table to amend this?
So we can't, my direction, I guess, would be to continue to have discussion and to make one motion to potentially amend each item, or we can make motions and make the amendments as we proceed. What's there? Board. Would you make your recommendation in the form of a motion?
As I was not on the board when this was created, so I do not know the intent that the board had while making this document. So I don't know if I would be in the best position to speak to the intent of the board as to whether or not they meant for students to have masks at these activities or not. My recommendation would be to clarify that verbiage one way or the other.
So I sat on the committee that formed this, and so I can speak, and then of course my fellow trustees that are here to my left can do so as well. The intent of this was a first step when this passed at the previous board meeting was to be a first step to pass this in order to then be able to have options for parents to utilize, and so that we could then eventually remove the mask policy, the universal mask policy for the district. So this was the first step in that. I believe the intent with universal masking, the way that I understood at the time that we did this was with universal masking, there was not a close contact or an exposure per se, because each party had a mask on. In this situation, option one then is for those who are exposed to essentially return to school with a mask on. And in order to prevent to mitigate, maybe not prevent, but to help mitigate any potential spread if they have contracted from their close contact and choose to return to school in person. So they would wear a mask for the 14-day period. I don't know that we had individual discussion related to the point that Ms. Chairs you bring up this evening.
No, and that could have been an oversight on the committee's part, as far as clarification on that went. I think that we need to have something that's uniform and clear for everybody across the district to understand, because the way this is worded is, you're exactly right, it's not clear. So,
Trustee Miller, if I may.
Please.
I think the intent of that line, and I do agree that there is a need for clarification. I think the intent of that line was to clarify in regards to those in physical activity. There was not the intent necessarily to further discuss students when in public settings or at school events that they would not be unmasked. The concern that I would have if we would not clarify that this would be the same expectation that extracurricular activities or events would be that in a situation where we did not have that in place when we had a universal mask requirement in the district, we did not have at that time close contacts attending after school activities as spectators because they were already in quarantine. If we were not to clarify and have that as a expectation, we would be in turn saying that we we would be having close contacts attending after school activities without any mitigation strategies in place. You may say that we currently have that if a student is participating in the activity, and you would be correct, but that student is also screened prior to all physical activity. So we have that mitigation strategy in place before the student participates in any activities. They are screened for temperature and questions related to their health. We would not have that in place if they were attending current extracurricular activities.
So as I read this, would it clarify it to under bullet point 1 where it says while at school related activities or work/work related activities. So that encompasses both teacher, district staff, as well as students. Does that meet the intent of the clarification that you're seeking?
Potentially, I still struggle a little bit with the fact that if we have a member of the public that tests positive or should be in quarantine, they can still attend these sporting events after school, correct? I mean, they're not supposed to, but we don't have a way to screen for that. So isn't it a bit hypocritical to hold our students to that standard?
That's also, well, it'd be, it would be dependent upon their contact with their health provider in regards to that positive test result. That test result would indicate then from the Department of Health that they would have received a notification that they should isolate in their home. Also, if they were to visit a healthcare provider, that healthcare provider would then state to them, you need to be staying home, you've tested positive. So they would be necessarily hearing that exact information. And I would hope that I definitely can't necessarily guarantee that we have never had a positive person attending events, because I agree, there is that potential. But I also think that we're looking at a school level close contact, sitting in close proximity to any students or any other spectators that we have identified and even warned and stated, you are not healthy enough, or we don't, let me rephrase that. You are not in a situation where you can attend school without a mask, but your close proximity at an after school event, we don't deem important enough to have that requirement. I don't know if this would be a suggested time. I know I mentioned to our school nurses that this conversation was going to be occurring. They also had 2 other suggestions for clarification. I certainly believe that because it's an addenda item, I would not recommend any significant changes other than editorials or for clarification purposes. So I did ask the nurses if they did have any of those items. They did. If we look at option 2, the 5th bullet, a suggestion that they made would be that school nurse until day 8 and a negative PCR test is received. There was some clarification needed in regards to the PCR test and a negative PCR test. That is current practice, but there were some questions on relating to how that is implemented. The other piece, or 2 other pieces, is if a close contact exhibits signs or symptoms at any time during the 14-day school quarantine period, they would be required to isolate for 10 days and will be required to wear a mask until day 14. This is the same expectation for all of our situations, but in that situation is not completely and specifically identified, where in the previous verbiage throughout the document, it talks about the mask requirement being for 14 days, but on that sentence, it doesn't necessarily, for clarification purposes, would add for information related to close contacts, signs or symptoms. Because if we did not have that, there could be the interpretation made, even though it was stated numerous times throughout the document that we would cite in this situation, that they are required to wear a mask until day 14, that isn't specifically on that line. In addition to that, there is need for clarification in regards to may test with a PCR test after 5 days from the first signs and symptoms. This is a piece in which it is a recommendation by the Wyoming Department of Health along with community health in regards to when first signs and symptoms are seen in relation to when a student might have, or student or staff member might have the most accurate test information is regarding what times the signs and symptoms. That does not necessarily mean that the student, if they were to test before that and tested positive, that would be inaccurate, but sometimes there are more, and I would turn it over to Trustee Miller, that there is more likelihood of a false negative than false positives in relation to that. So if a student or staff member decided that they felt they were in a position to test before the 5 days and test positive, they would have enough of a viral load to test positive. But in some situations, there may be an issue where there might be a false negative because the test was taken too early in relation to those signs and symptoms. And so for clarification purposes, this would assist nurses in explaining this information. They have been explaining that information in that frame, but there has been some confusion because it's not specifically identified in this bulleted item.
Is there any further discussion on this?
I guess I'd like to just make, it's not to any point here specifically, but in general, and I'm probably in the major minority on this one, but to me, this is just a mess. The whole contact tracing's a mess. We could sit here and pick this apart all night long, and the next meeting, we're gonna have to come back and try to fix this, and fix that. We need to get back to, if the kids are sick, stay home. If not, go to school. If you got the choice to wear a mask. To me, this is a mess. that we're not ever gonna fix it. We're gonna sit here and we're gonna waste all of our time trying to go through every little bullet point to straighten this deal out. And I mean, we could discuss it all night long and we're not gonna gain any ground, in my opinion.
Any other comments?
Can you remind me who was part of that committee?
I was.
Me,
Myself.
I would like to make the recommendation that this go back to the committee. So it could be reviewed for some clarification as to the point that was made earlier and to any other that might need to be relooked at. I don't believe that at this point, this is the time to do that. So I would actually make a recommendation, the motion that this be reviewed by the committee and relooked at.
So
I'd
there's-
also like to add that we could have the option to add more members to the committee.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to send this back to the committee to review this Goshen County School District 2021-2022 school level close contact protocol and make any necessary editorial changes, which would then be reviewed by the board. Is that correct?
Yep.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, is there any discussion on that motion? All right, we'll proceed through a roll call. Mr. Salcedo.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Hager.
Yes.
Mr. Cushman.
yes.
I'm yes. Mr. Sussex.
Yes.
Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
Mr. Schmick.
Yes.
Ms. Bullington.
Yes.
Ms. Chairs.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. There's also discussion around changing composition of the committee. Is there any individual that would like to sit on that subcommittee?
I would volunteer to sit on that committee.
Chairs. Hager. Mr. Cushman, would you like to remain on the committee?
There can only be, what, 4 of us?
Yes.
I'll step down.
I would also recommend that we include a school nurse along with 4 nurses on that discussion so that we can hear their input throughout that discussion.
I changed my mind.
You can change your mind.
I didn't know there was only 4 and I don't.
We just cannot have a board quorum in order to have a committee.
Okay. Max started it. I'm not gonna take someone's spot.
So the committee will be composed of Chair Sussex, Cushman, and myself. All right. And we'll just, if you could help us schedule that for that committee with James. Thank you. All right, moving on. Item D. No, yes, item D. Consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of new football scoreboard for the Lingle-Fort Laramie schools. It's recommended to approve the purchase of a new football scoreboard from Nevco in the total amount of $14,851.68 for the Lingle-Fort Laramie school football field. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the purchase of a new football scoreboard from Nevco for $14,851.68 for the Lingle-Fort Laramie School football field.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Consider approval of item E, consider approval of posting a new position for a district technology job coach. I'll let you read the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Fuller, hearing our previous comments during public forum, could you please explain both this position as well as the funding associated with?
Yes, certainly, Chairman Miller. So this position is, so I'll just read to you what I put in the grant, and this is what we have to follow. Goshen County School District 1 would hire a certified teacher with strong technology integration skills. Item B, this teacher provides direct classroom support to instructional staff across all 8 of our district schools. This includes all our brick and mortar and virtual schools. This support optimizes the virtual education skills and techniques of all certified and classified staff members. So there's nothing tied to what our virtual enrollment is for this grant. There was no requirement to even report what our virtual enrollment is for this grant. And so this person would provide support to both our teachers that are providing virtual support and through the Flat River School. They would also support teachers that, you know, for example, we had a couple classrooms early this year that went out on a 2-week quarantine with 2 classes. They would provide support to those teachers to help those kids through that 2-week virtual experience. So when we say virtual, it's both our actual virtual teaching program and kids and teachers that are out for any period of time due to the kind of, COVID or anything. And again, it's not tied at all to our enrollment in the virtual program. There is one thing that we would put in here that is really neat for our virtual kids. One of the things we added to this was providing our virtual kids with hands-on art and science kits every month during the life of this grant. So that would start January of 22 and run through December of 23. And what would happen is the kids that are in our true virtual program would get one of these kits every month. Our virtual teacher, Mrs. Immel, would get the kit first, and she would design a virtual instruction lesson for all of our virtual kids. And so this would be one of the few times our virtual kids actually all meet together. And our goal with that is not only to give them something else besides, that's hands-on as part of the virtual program. Our goal is also then to help build a sense of community among our virtual kids so that they don't feel quite so isolated.
Trustee Miller, if I also might add to that. One thing to kind of clarify also in regards to that job coach, that is title of job coach, but is also referenced as instructional facilitator. We currently have 2 instructional facilitators in the district. The district at one time had 7 instructional facilitators specifically focused on academic areas to assist teachers in the instruction and understanding of that. Over time, because the reduction of funding from the state, those positions were reduced to 2. Now this funding allows us to have an additional facilitator to aid in the assistance of virtual education. Also, one of the pieces that we will be implementing within the next year that is required by the state is our computer science curriculum and the requirement to implement that at our district level. In order to do that at an adequate manner, we need an expert from the district in order to help teachers institute those practices within the district. We can't ignore that. We can't say, we don't want this. This is something that we don't have to implement computer science. We are required. And this allows a position to support those needs. Otherwise, without that, we would have to do it with existing personnel and expect our teachers to not have the support to be provided with an expert in that area. In addition to that, in regards to the virtual education, even pre-COVID, we were losing kids to 3 districts in the state of Wyoming to virtual education. We were losing students out of our district. We have developed a program that is going to hopefully keep students within our district. In this situation within the last year and a half, because the state saw the need, they opened up some of the rules and regulations to start our school. Prior to a year and a half ago, the regulations were extremely strict and tight. And even if we had a strong desire to open up our virtual school, it would have been very difficult. So now we've been able to institute our own virtual program and students, whether it's COVID or not, are going to have that desire. Because we have a population right now that is a very mobile population. For many students that come from some of our outlying areas and participate in rodeo and those activities, this is a great avenue for them to graduate from their school that they grew up attending, but they also have a strong desire to travel and incorporate other things within their life that allows for this. And we want the best possible program for all of those students. We don't want to be restricted because we know in today's environment education, we do have opportunities and we need to continue to grow and adapt to those students' needs. This position, along with the position, allows us to support our teachers to provide them with the best expertise within the district in relation to that. It also, as I wanted to reemphasize, it does not have anything tied to the number of students that we have switching over from our face-to-face to virtual. This is to support the students that have a desire to be in a virtual program at this time.
Any further discussion?
Just a single question. So I'm taking it that we've applied and it's been awarded. We've been awarded this grant?
Yes, that's correct, Trustee Sacido. They had $1 million to award. And so at the amount we got just under 50% of the total grant amount that was available for the whole state.
Trustee Miller, if I may, if you refer back to consent agenda, G, accept grant from Wyoming Department of Education for digital learning and virtual education in the amount of $483,240.85. That is a huge grant, and as Mr. Fuller just alluded to, we almost have 50% of the entire state allocation. That's pretty significant and powerful for our students in relation to how we can support our virtual learners. Because we know virtual learning isn't necessarily something for everyone. We completely know that, but it is for a certain segment of our population. And if we don't offer that at a high level, somebody else will. And our students have the opportunity, if we don't offer it, they will attend another district that will. And so it is our obligation to create and maintain the best program we can possibly provide students in Goshen County if they choose to go into the virtual domain for education.
How many years will this program be supported by this grant?
Yes, Trustee Snake, this will be supported starting basically right now through the first semester of the 23-24 school year. Prior to submitting the grant, I did have conversations with Business Manager Cates and Superintendent Kramer that if we feel like this person is doing a really great job for us, we will look at seeing if we have some general fund money that we can finish up this position at least through the end of the 23-24 school year. One of the things that's part of this grant also is sending a number of our staff to technology conferences, quality national technology conferences over the next 2 years, so that not only do we have a support person to help them here, we're also looking at growing the capacity we have of our existing staff to provide these kinds of technology skills, both to integrate technology into the classroom, which is going to be important when we look at the new computer science standards. The state has made some massive changes to that. In fact, keyboarding is no longer even a state standard anymore. They moved beyond that. It's all problem solving and how you approach things in a computer environment. So we've got that to deal with also. But what I like about this, really honestly, what I'm most excited about in this grant is those kits we're going to give to our virtual kids. Because to me, now we're giving them something hands-on to go with their virtual education. And by pulling them all together for that virtual lesson from Mrs. Himmel on each kid, we then start building a community with those virtual kids, whereas most of the time they don't interact with each other because they're all working on their own individual programs. And so thinking about what the board had talked about earlier this year about trying to address social and emotional needs, I felt that was a really great way to address that for our virtual kids. So like I said, right now, this position would only run through the end of the first semester of the 23-24 school year, potential to run through the second semester, and then at that point, it would not continue under the current funding. And this will be something we'll just have to kind of evaluate. Again, that's why we're also sending people to conferences along with this person or our virtual teachers, so that we build up that capacity. So if the position doesn't continue, we've got people at a much higher capacity level so that they can move on and continue moving forward if we can't continue to fund.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of, sorry, just a quick clarification, Ms. Chrysler, can you read us back the motion? Okay, see, thank you. So the recommendation is to approve this. Does
That captures my motion, yes.
Thank you. All in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item F, consider approval of district renewal with the Child Nutrition Co-op for USDA foods and commodities for 2022-2023 school year. The recommendation then is to approve renewing district participation in the Child Nutrition Co-op for the procurement of USDA foods and commodities for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second? Sorry.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes. Item G, consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase and installment of wireless microphones for Southeast schools. The recommendation then is to approve the purchase of handheld wireless microphones and one body pack set from CAV in the total amount of $13,335.95, which is distributed as in your packet through the general fund and building budgets. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the purchase of handheld wireless microphones and one body pack set from CAV in the total amount of $13,335.95, $11,006.51 from general fund, and $2,329.44 from the building budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a question, is this for the gym?
That is correct.
This will be a welcome addition at graduation.
That is correct. Some backstory on that current system is outdated, and as cellular providers move into the area, if you remember a number of years back, the FCC changed the frequencies that cellular operators can be on. With that change, that adjusted a lot of our CB radios. In turn, also affects some of our wireless microphones in the district. As new providers move into the area, then they broadcast on that frequency, it creates interruptions along that frequency. In this situation, we feel that we're probably going to be faced with this not only at Southeast, where this is the problem right now. We may be faced with the same problem at Lingua Fort Laramie and Torrington High School in the future. So that is the reason for the mix of general fund district equipment dollars and building budget, because we wanted to create a base of where we think that each school should have a base of, this is your Chevy Cavalier model. If you feel that you have other needs within your specific building that require a little bit more microphones or a little bit more mixers, then that would be the responsibility of the building to come up with the remaining funds to accomplish your wish list. So you can see that's the reason for the mix of funds in the funding stream there. We have not experienced those problems as of yet in Lingua Fort Laramie, Torrington High School.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of this, approving this as a motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, the next item then is topics for discussion. So on page 72 of your agenda are some documents just related to our overall leadership governance as a board. Just wanted to have some discussion around these this evening. This was with our new board member joining. There's actually some various information in here related to how we as board members individually interact with each other, how we interact with the district administration, as well as with the public. And so I just wanted to have the opportunity to review these. Is there any discussion in general on these items?
Do we have, is it on the books to have the gentleman from WSBA come back to talk about those?
That is something we need to get scheduled. And I think that that is under our next meetings. I think that is something that we should have some discussion around. As you would note there under page 1.1, the commitment of the board talks about our commitment. The board will, item number 6 is evaluate our process performance annually. That's something that Ms. Patrick has pointed out has been lacking amongst the board. And so I think that having the gentleman from WSBA come back and instruct the board on how we can then institute an evaluation process for our board is very much needed.
I think what I would also like to see tied into that, and I mentioned this before, but I'd really like to see that school visiting schedule put together, just because the school year's flying by fast. And I think if we can get that put in place for special events, I think that would be really nice, just to be more present at big school events.
So is there a way for the district principals to notify maybe Maureen and she can send out what happenings for the next month of opportunities for us to attend?
I think the big piece for me was that we were going as a cohesive group and not like going one at a time. And that way the school administrators could be not thrown off and be more planned.
It was something that was scheduled as opposed to us just showing up.
Yeah. So I think just maybe having something put together there would be really helpful.
Want to take a stab at putting something together? I would assume at the board of 9, we'd probably want to split up into groups of 3. I would suppose that 3 of us can attend or, and be invited to those various functions.
Yes. We can get that done.
All right, the board member code of conduct is in here. And so the only thing I'd point out there is that was pointed out to me. I had a meeting with the WSBA's chair, or I guess executive director is his title. And he pointed out to me that board members are typically held to the same standards. So if we're in a school instance, language, adhering to the same policies that our district personnel would be held to at those times. And so that our interactions with students as well as employees of the district are the same standard that we'd expect the staff of the district to uphold. And there's just a process for how we address that. And if there is not, and then just how the board in general interacts with acts ongoing. So we have opportunity to change this. So I think if the board is willing to just take a look at this and maybe have further conversation at the next meeting around any bullet points that we feel need to be amended or changed, just so that the governance document remains a live thing versus something that's kind of sits on a shelf and becomes stale. I don't think any one of us that are on board, well, maybe Trustee Saucedo or Patrick had input into this document, but it's been around a while.
I don't know if you recall, but we attempted to do some revisions 4 years ago or so, going through it section by section. And we had some revisions and I still have them, but they were fairly minor.
Okay. So to these, if there's any revisions that you'd like to, or any further discussion at our next meeting, maybe just review these same sections and we'll keep them on the agenda for the next meeting.
Chairman Moore, may I suggest possibly a subgroup or a subcommittee of the board? I think that it is very difficult, as we know, in these settings to have a fluid discussion in this type of regular board meeting to have maybe meaningful changes that could possibly occur within some subcommittee work relating to the language and some improvement, as we've seen that within policy, and we've seen that with some other things that we've created, that subgroup, that maybe that would facilitate some nice conversation that might add and then bring back to the group, the board as a whole, for some suggestions.
So is there anybody that has a driving or burning passion for governance documents that would like to serve on the subcommittee? Trustee Schmidt.
I'll participate. I'm getting a pointed look. from Trustee Saucedo, so
Patrick.
I would participate.
Awesome.
If people aren't sick of
There
seeing
is
me at
our-
every committee.
There's our
meeting there is.
committee. Perfect, thank you.
I have a question for you as a new
Yes.
board member. One of the lines that jumped out to me was work in partnership with the superintendent, staff, students, parents, and the community. And I don't know per board policy if we can or have in the past included parents and members of the public in subcommittees or committees to work on big topic issues or problems that we're having in the district. Is that something we can do in the future?
Yes, please.
One of the things that we are looking at right now is our curriculum coordinating council. We're setting up our first meeting for that for December. And on that, per board policy, we are required to get parents as part of that, board members, community members. And so that's something I've asked all the principals to forward to us, is the names of at least a couple of parents from every school. And so we'll be reaching out to those parents in the very near future to ask them to participate in that. And there'll be another meeting, at least one in the spring. And that's the group that makes any recommendations for example, new course requests, changes in curriculum materials, all that comes through that group, and they make recommendations then to the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Kramer, anything additional to add? Thank you. There was a topic that came up from a previous meeting. We do have a policy, just for those of the public to be aware of. So policy 9361 is a policy whereby community members can, if there is an agenda item, one of the frustrations I know has been a lack of dialogue from public forum. And so there is a policy. That policy states that you can forward a request for an agenda item to be put on our agenda to the superintendent 7 days in advance of the board meeting. Those items will then be reviewed by the superintendent, chair, and vice chair in order to see if the time will allow, et cetera, and get on a future agenda of the board. That would allow then for discussion amongst the board, as we have with every other topic, as well as include the person who brought forward the agenda in that discussion. And so that, I believe, is a really positive thing that we can do to improve the interaction with each of you. Aside from that, is there any other discussion for the board? No topics of discussion this evening? All right, hearing none. The future meetings then are the WSBA annual conference will be held at the Casper Ramkota, November 17th through 19th, 2021. Our next regular board meeting will be Tuesday, December 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. That will include the annual reorganization of the board and board committee assignments. And so the other topic then was a potential work session with the WSBA, as we had previously discussed, is what time frame. These next 2 months are typically busy for various individuals and are difficult to fit things in. However, just want to have that discussion. When would we like to have that next work session to discuss board governance and evaluation?
we're gonna stick to the same. If we're gonna stick to the same time frame of the month, which is traditionally that third Thursday, I believe. I think that ties in pretty close with Thanksgiving and Christmas. So maybe consider January.
Yeah, I would think that we'd have to consider his schedule. And once we know what his schedule looks like, we have a better idea of when to schedule it for us.
I believe that they said they would be available that third Thursday in January from our previous discussion. Is that correct?
Yes, I can confirm that, but I think that that would be an appropriate date and have plenty of time to make sure that that still continues to work. So we could tentatively have that within there and then move from. If there would be a reason that that wouldn't work, we can make an adjustment to the time.
Okay, so maybe we can bring that item back at the next meeting.
To throw out a date, that would be January 20th. If we want to tentatively put that down, just for, I know the schedules change dramatically. So if you want to pencil that in until I have an opportunity to confirm that date.
Is there any desire to hold any other work sessions in the month of November or December from any member of the board? Okay. The only other topic under our future meetings that I just wanted to address is that we have asked the district high school administrators and administrators throughout the district actually to present on standards-based grading. That was a topic that was brought up in our previous public forum. And so that will be discussed at our board meeting in December. And then I will turn the time over to you, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay, I will just kind of share a couple of things. One of the things that's kind of confusing in regards to, as we look at funding for schools and average daily attendance, I'm going to just pull this up and share the screen. Sure, that's the right. So on your screen right now, you'll notice this is the average attendance. This is a percentage basis in relation to the attendance of students. This, as you'll notice, some significant change in relation to the year and when it was occurring, because as you can see, prior to COVID, it was very consistent in most grade levels, most buildings, that we were above 90% attendance rate. As you can see, since that time, that has dipped from where we were, and the colors indicate obviously a positive trend in relation to where we were at. This is the 2021 August and September. So this would have been August and September, and obviously this is October. So this line in green indicates that we had a better attendance rate than the previous month. This red right here indicates that we had below 5% below from the previous year. So as you can see, based on our funding, and it's allocated on a monthly basis, attendance is extremely important. In the last 2 years, because of some of the things that we've been dealing with, we have put a temporary hold on some of the attendance pieces, as we have with policy. And also too, when we have truancy issues, there has been a hesitancy in a lot of those situations to have the same level of requirements that we had in the past due to multiple reasons, because there are seeming to be many more issues within families and other issues that affect school attendance. The challenge that we have, because those are, and I have recommended those changes in policy and feel that that is the right thing to do, that impacts this next screen in regards to our average then in regards to the daily or average attendance see here, the daily numbers that we have for each building. So as you can see, certain buildings have a lot more green in relation to where they've had at these lower levels, Lingo Fort Laramie and such, because we have some certain class levels that are really going through that are larger, have a definite impact. So in this column here, this is indicating that it is up from the previous month. So any green here is a better average daily attendance. So like this line, for instance, one of the questions would be, how do we get 26.22 kids? How is that possible? How do we figure it? It's based on their attendance rate. It's a factor and multiplication piece in which their attendance is a factor every month in regards to our funding. So if they miss a portion of a day, our average attendance rate dips. And so therefore that is absolutely related to our funding stream. So it is vitally important that we know that attendance is paramount. When a student is needing to be in attendance, they should be there. This is then the previous years in their previous grade. So what I did then was went back last year. For instance, of course, 26 students compared to 19 last year. Yeah, that's a dark green because that's an increase. Well, that actually in reference to the previous year is a decline, because that class is actually less than it was, even though it shows 9th grade, they may have been 28 in the year previous. And so that is actually a loss. As you look here, Lingo Fort Laramie has had some increases. They have some red within middle school, but overall a very healthy attendance. As we kind of move down, you'll see a little bit more red in the Lincoln Elementaries, the Southeast Elementaries, Southeast High School. Overall, as you can see from the far right corner, we're still remaining, without any red. So in the previous month, there hasn't been a drop. But when we compare previous years, there are some areas that we need to take a look at in regards to some of the impact. Now, one of the impacts that we have that is not a negative can also be affiliated with THS, because we've actually increased enrollment where we never had this school in place. And so you take primarily the majority of these students were attending Torrington High School. Now they are attending PRS. It's not a loss in funding. It's actually the gain in serving the students' needs. And so that's kind of important as you look at those attendance pieces. And it's important to kind of keep abreast of how those are figured, how attendance is such a factor for us, and how we can make sure that we maintain those attendance rates. The next item that I didn't have on here, but I do want to start on a monthly basis talking about is student achievement data. And what I'm going to bring up is the district. I'm going to talk about 3rd and 4th grade in particular this month. And my hope is to be able to speak to the achievement data at each 2 grade levels per month with the goal of getting to the point of where we have all grade levels and ACT data being at the very end. So what I'm going to focus on right now is 3rd and 4th grade this last year. So you'll remember there was 2021 data, and then in the 1920 school year, the Y-top was not given. And so we don't have data. So when doing a comparison, if I have a 5th grader and I want to see how they did in the year before, I'm not able to go back to the 4th grade because they didn't take it in 4th grade. I have to go all the way back to 3rd grade to see a comparison. So what this is this column here indicates the state average in the area of 3rd grade mathematics. You can see here that the district of this last year scored below the state average here. But you'll notice in this particular group, there was improvement from the previous years. Now, this isn't a group continuum of improvement because we're not comparing the same students when we have in 3rd grade, because they weren't assessed using the Y-top anytime before 3rd grade. But as you can see, 3rd grade in general, as the district has steadily increased over the last 3 years in their proficiency. So this is the percent of students that are scoring proficient or advanced in the area of YTOP for mathematics. Then as we look down in English, you can see actually this last year, third grade far exceeded the percentage of students at the state level in regards to English language arts, where 58.1% of our students scored proficient or advanced, where in comparison the state scored at 50.3. This is also an improvement from the previous year's question, Zach.
When was Orton Gillingham introduced?
So this is our second school year of Orton Gillingham. Yep. This, and that's a great question. What would probably be a better indicator of Orton Gillingham success would be reading fluency. And that is data that we utilize on an Ames Web data, which is an oral reading fluency monitor, which is also some data that is very encouraging. And I may bring back also. This assists in some of that and obviously would have an impact, but the direct correlation from Orton Gillingham to reading on grade level is not a perfect fit in some cases. But I think it does. I'm extremely pleased with the results right now and what we're seeing. Math in the 4th grade level, as you can see again, success moving up. We've increased the percentage of proficiency, but unfortunately have not met that state average or where we want to be. This has been an area of focus for Mr. Fuller, that he has actually taken it upon himself to take a look at some programs. We know Orton Gillingham has been a success within our district for multiple reasons. There's multiple factors that we feel are having a significant impact on students. One of them is the implementation of a high quality program and being consistent at every grade level and providing high quality training. Those components have to be in place when we look at mathematics. And Mr. Fuller has, as he explained, I think it was that your first meeting, Mr. Fuller, was the program that you asked to
pilot
yes.
the Eureka Math for 4th grade. That this year, 4th grade is piloting Eureka Math. And my goal in that is that's one of the things that's actually going to be discussed at the meetings for the Curriculum Coordinating Council, is what the progress is and what the results are that they're seeing on that. Because my philosophy is I don't want to approve a huge purchase for the district unless we've tried it for a little while and we're sure this is going to meet our needs. I just don't believe in that. And so that's why we're piloting that at 4th grade. There's some other pilots that we're doing for language arts and possibly social studies with some other small groups to meet some of the needs they've expressed at, say, for example, the middle school level. And so there's a number of things we're piloting, and that's why I requested that change in our district policy to allow pilots, which lets us be a little bit more nimble and try some things out. And then if they're working, then we go back to the Curriculum Coordinating Council and say, hey, this is really effective. This is what we're seeing. And then from there, move forward with making a decision. Do we want to roll this out to larger groups within the district?
Moving on then to English 4th grade, you can see where we have exceeded the state average in English language arts by a little bit there, but we did score a little bit lower than our 17-18 data there. And then of course, science, we had the below, we did not have reached that pinnacle where we were at in 17-18. And then we did not reach the state average in that grade level. This is data that is pertinent and very easily discussed. It doesn't kind of get to some of the things that we're really taking a hard look at, but it's important that we have a knowledge base and really feel proud of what we're doing. There's some great things going on in those grade levels. And I think we need to celebrate the successes and then also acknowledge some of the things that we can be better at in this next coming year. I think it's extremely impressive when we look at what the situation was last school year, and we look at the success in those grade levels, and it'll be even more evident as we kind of move through the grade levels and look at the comparison of a cohort group and how successful a cohort group was when we look back into their previous year's academic success. And even in a COVID year, how much our teachers helped to facilitate very high quality learning. in an environment that was very difficult. And so I think we should be very proud for where we were at in relation to that. The only other item that I had, just to reference, I just wanted to make sure and acknowledge, currently, right now, there are no funding streams that we have accepted nor applied for that have anything to do with metrics in regards to quarantine, masking, positive cases, negative cases. There is no funding stream that we have looked at, applied for, or been granted that is tied to any grants related to any specific metrics within the district. I'm not saying that something like that doesn't exist somewhere in the nation, possibly, but it does not exist in Goshen County.
Thank you. Any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll send adjourned.